Call me Terri.
Idaho chooses life. Welcome to Teresa Marcroft.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Tonight, I'd like to tell you about Emma, a high school senior right here in Idaho. Emma has always been in the choir. She's a volunteer, a good student, involved in clubs and in many sports. She's popular and attractive and smart. So last year, the captain of the football team, Jacob, also the coolest guy in class, started paying attention to her. They were always together. And before long, Emma knew that she was in love. But then, in the winter of her junior year, Emma got pregnant. She felt desperate, panicked, terrified, paralyzed with fear. When she told Jacob that she was pregnant, he ghosted her and moved away. Emma was alone and had no idea what she was going to do. Today in the US, nearly half of all pregnancies are unplanned. And what's more, 99% of women facing an unplanned pregnancy choose either abortion or single parenting. And that's because abortion is promoted as the safe, quick, convenient solution to a problem. Get it done, and then move on with your life. There are no downsides. And at the same time, single parenting is promoted as the glamorous, independent, triumphant adventure, liberating and inspiring for strong women. After all, celebrities in Hollywood are doing it, apparently with great success. You can read all about that on Instagram. But is that the truth? Is the binary choice either abortion or single parenting really all there is? Think again about Emma, who was pregnant and alone. We know that 1 in 4 teens, just like Emma, will get pregnant by age 20. We also know that some of them will choose to leave the state and get an abortion. If you had the chance to talk to Emma last year, what would you have said to her? Especially when she told you that she was not ready, not equipped, and just not wanting to become a parent right now. You might have suggested adoption, but the truth is most people don't, because it's not on their radar. They just don't know much about it, how it works, or even how to get started. Or what they do know is outdated or incorrect. For example, they might think that the birth mother has to cover the expenses. Or they might confuse foster care with adoption, even though the purpose of foster care is to reunite biological children with their biological parents. Plus, talking about adoption makes some people uncomfortable uncomfortable. Because of how adoption was practiced in past years, there's a stigma, so many secrets. The pregnant woman was invisible, ignored, and often shamed. For all of these reasons, only 1% of women facing unplanned pregnancy today choose to place their baby for adoption. 1%. Look at the data. Today, there are 2.8 million unplanned pregnancies in the US, half abort and half become single parents. The binary choice fed to women, either abort or become a single parent, is winning, because in 2020, there were only 16,658 people who made adoption plans for their babies. Meanwhile, almost 2 million couples are ready and waiting to adopt in this country. All of that is just tragic. It begs the question, how much do you really know about adoption as it's practiced today? Years ago, when most of us were growing up, adoptions were done very differently. Before the 1990s, most adoptions were closed. And in closed adoptions, it respected the privacy of both the birth parents and the adoptive parents. But often, here's what happened. If a young unmarried woman got pregnant, the pregnancy was kept secret. The woman and her parents were afraid of the shame, the rejection, and the disapproval. I mean, what would the neighbors think? Adoption was often forced on a young woman, usually by her parents, and the woman had no say in any of it. Sometimes the pregnant woman was sent far away to live with a relative until the baby was born. And then once the baby was placed with adoptive parents, the young woman was told, never speak about this again. Keep it a secret. Just forget about it and move on. So there was no grieving, no talking it out, no help, no healing, even though the young woman went through the sorrow, loss, and trauma of parting with her child. There was no contact, no communication, no information about her child. The birth mother never knew how the baby was doing in the new family that she made possible. It was a cruel practice. It just ended without any closure. Thankfully, times have changed. Today, the decision to place for adoption is not forced upon a young woman. Instead, she chooses it for herself, often with the birth father by her side. Today, the birth mother chooses everything. She can choose the adoptive parents, parents of a certain age or race. Choose a two-career couple, or a couple with a stay-at-home parent. She can choose the values and faith in which she wants her baby raised. So if the birth mother has a vision for the future she wants for her child, she can choose the parents who will help make that vision a reality. The birth mother can even choose to keep in touch with her child and with the adoptive parents over the years. Today, most adoptions, most of them have some degree of openness, which is why they're called open adoptions. Most people don't really know what that means, and once they find out, they're pleasantly surprised about how it works. In an open adoption, the birth mother and the adoptive parents decide together what their ongoing relationship might look like. Will they stay in touch through letters or photos or phone calls or texts? Will there be regular visits? With open adoption, there are no secrets, just so many possibilities for loving relationships and peace of mind for all involved. For example, the birth mother and father can follow the child's progress as the child grows. The child never wonders where they came from and is reassured knowing that the adoption decision was made from a place of pure and selfless love. Plus, the adoptive parents can easily get important information from the birth parents, like medical and genetic history, so that they can best care for their child. For the birth mother, choosing adoption is empowering at a time when she feels powerless, desperate, panicked, terrified, and paralyzed with fear. Birth moms today are empowered because of all the choices they get to make. It's empowering to have your voice be the most important voice in the room. It's empowering to take responsibility and make a plan to provide for your child. It's empowering to see that your decision creates a family. It's empowering to know that your decision allows a child to thrive. And that makes every birth mother the hero of every adoption story today. Not the invisible woman of the past who is often judged and ashamed and sent away. But think about this for a moment. Heroes demonstrate courage, selflessness, moral fortitude in the face of adversity. Heroes are driven by a bigger purpose, a higher calling. And heroes go above and beyond the expectations of society to make a positive impact, an extraordinary impact on the lives of others. Which is why hero is a fitting title for every birth mother who puts the needs of the child far above her own. A birth mother is determined, brave, compassionate, humble, resourceful, and resilient. The birth mother loves her baby so much that she chooses to make an adoption plan knowing that the adoptive parents will provide for her child better than she can at this point in her life. Birth mothers are heroes because adoption is hard. If you talk with any birth mother, she will tell you that adoption was the hardest decision of her life, but one that she knew with all her heart was right. It's hard knowing that you'll bring a baby into the world and then hand the child over to another family. It's hard physically, inconvenient to carry a baby for 9 months, and then painful to go through the hours of labor and delivery. It's hard emotionally. The pain is intense, the grief is deep, you cry and sob for the child that you willingly lose to adoption, and then you feel empty inside. It's hard to heal. There's a roller coaster of emotions, intense highs and lows, uncertainty, anticipation, sorrow, relief, accomplishment, comfort. Because adoption is so hard, birth mothers should be respected and celebrated, loved and supported always. Although birth mothers will tell you that adoption is hard, they will also tell you that adoption is amazing. As time goes on, birth mothers will tell you that placing their child for adoption was the best decision they ever made and the proudest and greatest accomplishment of their lives. Birth mothers who choose adoption feel rewarded seeing their baby in a happy, stable family and grateful for the chance to remain a part of their child's life. The relationships they make are lasting, and the satisfaction is real. I know all of this because my family experienced the beauty of open adoption. After a career in marketing in my 20s and 30s, I was ready to settle down, finally, and get married, start a family. So I started dating pretty seriously, met and married my husband, Dave. For years, we struggled to start a family, but then we met Dee, the woman who chose my husband and me to parent her baby 24 years ago. Dee got pregnant during her senior year of high school and decided to make an adoption plan with the support and encouragement of her mother. After looking through stacks of profiles of hopeful adoptive couples, Dee chose us for 3 reasons. We both had careers, but no kids yet. We both had a strong Christian faith, and we could provide her baby with a whole lot of cousins. For that, we were very well equipped since my 6 siblings had 16 kids by then, a built-in tribe of cousins. Since then, our experience has been a beautiful one, starting with Dee's first ultrasound appointment, the day that we met our daughter, Sydney, in 2D, black and white. Dee allowed us to participate in her pregnancy, join her for doctor's appointments and Lamaze classes, and even be there for Sydney's birth on August 18th of 1999. Whatever Dee asked for, our answer was always yes. Keep in touch, Dee said. Send photos every 2 months at least. Make sure Sydney gets to know her cousins. I am forever grateful to Sydney's birth mom, Dee, because she made me a mom. And being Sydney's mom has been the greatest honor of my life. This morning, my daughter, Sydney Harris, took a day off work, left her home in San Diego, and flew up to Boise because she wanted to support this event. And I'd love for you to meet her. Sydney, would you stand up? Thank you so much for being here, sweetie. Sydney has been a blessing in our lives, but not all families are as lucky and blessed as ours. For every child who's placed for adoption, 36 couples are waiting, and the average wait is getting longer. So today, only 1% of women facing an unplanned pregnancy choose adoption, but we can change that reality. We can empower more women to choose adoption and be the hero of a child's adoption story by changing our laws to make it easier for women to say yes to adoption, and by taking the time to learn and understand about how adoption works today and advocate for adoption as a loving, positive response to unplanned pregnancy. So first, let's talk about changing the laws, because change is underway right here in Idaho. In 2015, I testified for the first time before the Idaho Senate State Affairs Committee and had the privilege of meeting Senators Grant Ipsen and Bart Davis, Idaho's leading voices on adoption at the time. Back then, Roe v. Wade was the law of the land, and abortion was legal in every state. It was a different time. Idaho was fiercely rejecting abortion, but not so strongly embracing adoption. So my reason for testifying back then was simple: to talk about the goodness of adoption, to suggest it, and to get more people to start thinking about it. 8 years later, Roe v. Wade is overturned, and Idaho got busy. Idaho said no to abortion, and yes to doing something positive for women facing unplanned pregnancy. Tonight, I am thrilled to tell you about the Birth Mother Care Act, a new bill going to the state legislature in January. This bill provides much needed awareness about adoption. It removes obstacles that make adoption harder and advocates for birth moms, the heroes who choose to make an adoption plan. I am so grateful to the Lieutenant Governor, Scott Bedke, sir, for your friendship and for your wise counsel early on. And I also want to say a special thanks to David Ripley for your steadfast dedication to life. And a few others to Senator Julie Van Orden, who's been reminding us all that we're only 1 degree of separation away from the adoption story of our life. To Senate President Pro Tem Chuck Winder, with his empathy and heart for adoption. To Superintendent of Education Debbie Critchfield, with her firm conviction that we must talk with teens about adoption while they're still in school. And to Mary Lou Molitor, Scott Bedke's right hand, and to many other of my new friends at the state capitol for their tender hearts and unfailing leadership on this issue. All of you and many others here in Idaho agree that we should honor birth mothers for choosing adoption, choosing life, choosing parents, by making it easier for them to place a baby for adoption, smoothing their path however we can, and pushing for more support, like the one-on-one counseling both before and after placement. With this legislation, we would be on our way to taking better care of women who choose this very difficult journey. Think about the possibilities. The Idaho Birth Mother Care Act could become the model for every other state in the USA. And that would be such a point of pride for Idaho. And here's what's also true. It's not the legislative changes that will get more people to look beyond the binary choice of abortion and single parenting and see adoption as an option. Instead, it's us. If all of us could better understand adoption today, we would be better equipped to encourage women to choose it as a loving, positive response to unplanned pregnancy. It's important because unplanned pregnancy does touch your life. It's your niece, your granddaughter, your student, or the girl next door. Each of you can make a difference in your communities and in your own families if you decide not only to be pro-life, but also to be pro-adoption. That means knowing how to advocate for adoption as the healthiest choice in the long term for women facing unplanned pregnancy, but not yet ready to parent. So here's a question. Do you know the truth about the effects of the current binary choice, abortion and single parenting, in the long term? So let's talk about that. What can happen to women long term who choose abortion? What are the impacts? First, a woman's mental health is affected. Women who choose abortion are at greater risk for depression, anxiety, substance abuse, and suicide. For years ago, I was at a retreat for women who had experienced pregnancy loss, and I saw women in their 70s and 80s sobbing as they shared stories about their abortion. They were still grieving that decision so many decades later. Second, a woman who chooses abortion has a higher risk for very preterm births in any future pregnancy. Very preterm births, meaning babies that weigh about 3 pounds or less, need neonatal intensive care to survive, and many do not. Each year, 1 million preterm babies of post-abortive women die. If preterm babies do survive, they often have complications like cerebral palsy, impaired hearing, and vision. Third, a woman who chooses abortion has a higher risk for breast cancer later in life because changes that happen in the breast during pregnancy, ending a pregnancy early before 32 weeks, puts women at risk. So when you consider all of these effects, the physical and mental health on women in the long term who choose abortion, it's worrisome, it's dangerous, and potentially life-threatening. And what about women who choose single parenting? They too face challenges in the long term, because the majority of single moms today are not the wealthy Hollywood stars with lucrative careers and flaunting single motherhood on Instagram. Instead, the majority of single moms today parent without a partner, without an education, and without a career. And that's why so many single moms struggle. Look at the data. Nearly 1/3 of single moms live in poverty, are food insecure, and spend more than half of their income on housing. 40% of single moms have jobs with low wages and no paid leave. And 27% of single moms struggle to afford shelter, and some become homeless. Children of single moms often struggle as well. 85% of children with behavioral disorders and 90% of youth who run away come from homes without a father. Women facing unplanned pregnancy need to know these long-term effects of the current binary choice between abortion and single parenting, but often they do not. If you know the facts, though, and you know how to advocate for adoption as the healthiest choice in the long term for women facing unplanned pregnancy, you can change the conversation in your communities and in your own families if you take the right approach. A few minutes ago, I told you about Emma, the high schooler who faced an unplanned pregnancy last year. What if Emma were your niece or the daughter of your best friend? or your own granddaughter or daughter. Many times our first response is emotional and unchecked. We look back, we make assumptions, we judge, we shame. But shame on us if shaming a woman facing unplanned pregnancy is our first response, since shame is not productive. So what's a better approach for counseling a young woman facing unplanned pregnancy? First, take a breath. Acknowledge that she feels desperate, panicked, terrified, and paralyzed with fear. Let go of the past and instead start with today. Embrace her without judgment, without shame, and instead show compassion and love. Be supportive so she's open to listening, and then you can talk about where to go from there. Second, ask her to consider her health, what to expect from the long-term binary choice, the physical and mental toll that abortion takes, and the challenges of single parenting as well. And at the same time, tell her what to expect in the long term from adoption, what's hard about it, and what's really amazing about it. Third, focus on the future. While there is no easy solution to unplanned pregnancy, it's good for a woman to know that in the long term, adoption is better for her health, better for her child, and better for the couple that she'll choose, who will be honored and forever blessed to become parents and receive the miraculous gift of family. Make no mistake, young women facing unplanned pregnancy aren't considering adoption because people like us, the parents and grandparents, the aunts and uncles, the mentors, teachers, and pastors in their lives don't know enough about it. We're not suggesting it. And if adults like us don't suggest it, young women will not consider it. That's why all of us need to unite around a new cause and not only be pro-life, but be pro-adoption. Beginning tonight, let's get educated about adoption. The more we learn and talk about adoption, the more we can erase that awful stigma of the secret forced adoptions of years past. The more we can improve and save the long-term health of so many women, and the more we can see babies born and new families created. Beginning tonight, let's reject that binary choice and normalize the idea that adoption today is a loving, positive response and the healthiest choice in the long term. So tonight, I'd like to leave you with 3 questions. When a woman you love suddenly faces an unplanned pregnancy and seeks your advice, will you be ready to advise her? If she's listening to the current culture, considering only the binary choice, will you remain silent? Or will you stand up for adoption as the healthiest choice in the long term when women face an unplanned pregnancy? Because the information you share and the suggestions you make can not only save lives, but can also create new families. Thank you.